I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:34. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Stacy, would you do the roll call?
Commissioner Garlock? Here. Commissioner Gilbert? Here. Commissioner Hosky? I'm sorry. Here. Commissioner Idarola is absent. Commissioner Mancini is absent. Commissioner Tagliatella? Here. Commissioner Perry? Here. And Chairman Kelly?
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Would you read the call of the meeting?
Notice of special meeting of the West Haven Charter Revision Commission, Tuesday, July 7th, 2026. Notice is hereby given that Arthur Kelly, Chairman, has called a special meeting of the West Haven Charter Revision Commission to be held at 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 7th in the Harriet North Courtroom, second floor, 355 Main Street, West Haven, Connecticut. The purpose of this special meeting is as follows. Discussion and action, if necessary, on the City Council's recommendations for revisions to the draft revised charter.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from last meeting? Do you need a couple minutes? Member Mancini is here.
Oh, great.
When ready, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chairman Perry, second by Member Tagliatella. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Discussion of and action, if necessary, on City Council's recommendations for revisions to the draft revised charter. We will talk about the first issue would be the Village Improvement Association language, and I will hand it over to the attorneys to tell us where they are with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just prior, and I mean just prior to our meeting this evening, Counsel for the Village Improvement Association handed back to Attorney Mednick a markup of the language that had been shared. I don't know that she was asked to mark it up quite as much as she has done. Happy to share some of this with the group if they'd like it, but I don't think it's fit for publication quite yet because, frankly, it's a lot more work than we were asking of them. Really just fundamentally if they had any structural issues with the two or three things that were being proposed by the commission. Certainly not to rewrite it, and it has been rewritten in a number of sections and in a number of ways, including budget submission and administrative requirements. And so I think it's probably appropriate, although I'll let Attorney Mednick complete this thought, to send it back to their counsel and thank them for their thoughtfulness and the time spent on it, but let them know that that's not exactly what we thought they should be doing with this. That's not really their role to play. That being said, if people would like to see the proposed language, I'm happy to make copies and share it with folks to read between now and what I think will be our next/final meeting.
Yes.
Can you share with us a couple of the...
You want me to go through? I'm glad that the Corporation Counsel thinks that I can complete his thoughts like an old married couple. That, it's yeah, we've been working well together. And it's a compliment. Thank you. So what I think they did, and there's nothing dramatic actually about it. They've accepted most of the concepts, but I think that the attorney thinks she's negotiating a contract as opposed to a charter provision. And I will remind her tomorrow that's what we're doing here, is that we're trying to write a charter provision. They added a few things like the complete title of the Village Improvement Association of West Haven, Inc. I don't have that's fine. They call it the West Haven Library System. No big deal there. They accepted the concept of the possibility of being supplanted, but then they started getting, and I said by providing notice, and they wanted to have prior written notice. I mean, so they're getting into, your business, people in business know this, just the give and take that you have in a contract. And so what I want to try to do is go back to them and say, I think the concepts are fine, but I think that's for a different side agreement, not for the charter. The charter is not going to resolve all the relationship between the parties. They want to make it clear, and I haven't looked at the language thoroughly. We say that they're responsible for its employees, and they add some language without limitation, any employee subject to a collective bargaining agreement to which the association is a party, including without limitation hiring, firing, providing benefits, and other customary acts of employers in the state of Connecticut. I don't have a problem with that conceptually. It's a lot of language, but it may be acceptable, even though it is a lot of language. They also want to make it clear that they're responsible for the upkeep, capital improvements of any real property owned by the association. We do not expect them to do anything for anything that's not owned by the association, and serving the function of the West Haven Public Library, the association property. Again, I don't have a serious conceptual problem with that. We'll look at that in a little more detail. In the liability section, they're pushing it a little too far. We're saying that they're responsible for any liabilities that may accrue under the operation of the association property. And again, I don't mind that definition that they've added, including indemnification for the city for any damages awarded against the city. I'm not sure that I would limit it to, I want a defense. Yeah. I want to make sure that we get defended, that the city is not expending funds in court. But again, I was not explicit about that because I thought that could be negotiated. We want to make, the concept was that they're liable. They want to push back and say, we're not liable for your negligence. I don't disagree with that. I'm not sure that should be in the charter, though. That might be something that should be negotiated. We can say they're liable for what they're responsible for. And if we go in there, we better have insurance if we're going to go in there to do something of an in-kind nature.
In other words, if we don't clear the ice on a sidewalk and someone sues, that's due to the city's negligence.
Our negligence, it may be contributory because they may have done some things too. Their paving may have been in a way that allowed for melting to accumulate. We would have some liability, but they might too. So I don't eschew the concept that the city could have liability for its actions, sure, whether we need to be explicit. So I'll look at the language and see if we can push back on that. Budget submission, there are some interesting points here. And again, I'm almost looking at it for the first time because I got it about 10 minutes before I got in the car.
Yep.
To come over here. We had language in here that, which they're fine with, that the association shall annually prepare on forms supplied by the mayor, director of finance, or other designated city officer, budget estimates, including any explanatory statements required by the city, including but not limited to, we'll have to clean that up, an annual plan showing, and we had showing planned use of the city and private funds, including operational and capital requirements of the library function. They deleted the planned use of city and private funds. I think they want to try.
Did they keep city funds or no? They kept city funds.
They took city out of that line, but they included it in their language. They say of anticipated use, so anticipated use of appropriated city funds for facilitating the functions of the library, which functions and expenditures shall be in the sole and absolute discretion of the association. Again, it's an interesting concept, but it was limited to the city funds side. I think it's important for the council, when they're considering the budget in a subsequent year, to be able to see what the library had done in the prior year to make determinations about what it can do going forward. And if it's planning on acquiring some new property, I think it's important that the city understand that their private funds are going to be sufficient to provide the leverage for a mortgage or for a sale or purchase or whatever those things are. And so I think there's got to be a way to do that. I don't think that the intent of the language, since I drafted it, it was not my intent, was to try to leverage and say, well, we're expecting you on the general fund side to contribute X out of your corpus. I think we understand that if they start doing that, the corpus starts to diminish, and that should be used for capital and for other types of things. So I think if we can come to an agreement there, I think we could probably work through that. This provision, and it gets right to the point, shall not be interpreted to require the association to expend any funds, including without limitation city funds, to not expend funds, including without limitation city funds, I think she duplicated it, or to prevent the association from utilizing its funds, including without limitation city funds, in the manner that association determines in its sole and absolute discretion, period. At all times, private and endowed funds shall be under the sole and absolute control of the association, and the city shall not be permitted to require expenditure allocation or other use of the same. That I understand. The earlier issues, of course, when we give it to them, it's under their discretion. But I think if I were sitting on the council and I were voting for $1.5 million to go to the library, I'd say, we're going to be watching how you spend the money. You come to us with these needs and these ideas. Unlike the Board of Eds, that's where they're trying to Board of Ed themselves.
Yeah.
Unlike the Board of Ed, we have the ability to say, no, you didn't tell us the truth last year, et cetera. Now, I think if during the course of a fiscal year, they were to go to the president, the chair of the council, or to the mayor, and say, I know we told you we were going to buy new geography books, and we're going to instead buy new geological books, I'm keeping it in the letter G, a different subject matter or different thing, I don't think any of the folks will complain about something like that. And we're not trying to control them in that way. On the other hand, we can't have them say to us that they have sole discretion. If they use their sole discretion and they do what they want to do after telling us what we expect that they were going to do, then they will live with the consequences in the next budget year.
Right.
So I'll try to explain that to them. So that language is a little disconcerting to me. I don't think we need a second Board of Education in any municipality. No real changes on the reporting requirements. They were okay with that language. A couple of minor changes in there. They had no issue with indemnification that would be set forth in a written agreement. I think we're okay with that. They took out the language because we were trying to be somewhat permissive, and they say that they shall maintain commercially reasonable administrative practices regarding competitive procurement practices and personnel policies to facilitate transparency in the provision of this vital service. Our language was that they would engage in those practices in a way that aligned with the best practices adopted by and legal standards applicable to municipalities. And I don't understand the commercial reasonably language in a public document involving a public function.
Yeah, well, I think everyone's less concerned with the commercially reasonable practice in their personnel policies and more concerned with the negotiation that goes along with the union. It's a public union, we've been told. I know it's an Ask Me union. We've been told that it operates under MIRA. I still don't know exactly how that may be the case. But if that is, then commercially reasonable really doesn't apply in this case.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say with regard to collective bargaining is if they're not talking to the mayor and they're not talking to the council chair or significant members of the council during that process, they're putting themselves in some risk because the city has no obligation to meet the increase. And so they would, it would behoove them to not ask for permission, not ask what it is, but to say, here's what we're doing, and this may cause a 2% increase in our budget request next year. How do you feel about that? If they don't do that, they'd be foolish. I don't think we can put that in here, but they would be awfully foolish in that regard. They came up with some slightly different alternate language. They had asked for, and I haven't looked at it clearly, and the Corp Council will look at it as well. They wanted to make sure that if, for example, and I think the scuttlebutt is they're looking at building a third library in town, that when they go to zoning, they want to be treated as a governmental use. And I don't think there's any issue with that as long as they are. And we had, they took out the language where we would approve any other use. We don't have to approve their library use. They're doing this under the charter. But they may be doing other things at our request, or they came to us and say they want to provide shelter for the homeless in the winter and the summer, air conditioning and all that. And so the city may contribute. Again, a potential liability for the city, back to that other point. But we want to make sure that if they're doing something that is not library use, it better be pre-approved by the city. Not something that they're going to speculate, we're going to do the shelter, because they've asked us in the past, no, make sure you get permission that you're going to do the shelter, and we'll work out the mechanisms for what triggers the opening of a shelter. But with the city's pre-approval, you could be considered a government use. So we have no problem with that, so we'll look at that language. So my read of it, which this is the closest read I had, reading it with you guys tonight, is I don't think we're far apart on the broad issues, but I think we're going to have to narrow the language down, and I want it to sound less like a contract and more like a charter provision. And I will talk to Stephanie in the morning to let her know. And if it needs a meeting, Mr. Chair, where we call you into it, or maybe others, to meet with the leadership of the library group, I think we need to do that. And so that's the reason we need this one additional meeting, which I think you've talked about in the future. But that's where we stand on the library.
Okay, thank you.
And they've been, can I just say one thing for the record? We just got it an hour and a half ago, and I don't blame them, because they just got the document from us yesterday morning. So they didn't have a lot of time to turn it around. I just wanted to say that while I wish we had it a little earlier, I can't blame them for just getting it. At least they got it for me for this meeting, so I was pleased that we got the document. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments for them? Anyone? All right, thank you. So the goal would be, obviously, to have this all straightened out for next week's meeting. What's the vote on it?
It has to be, yeah.
Yes, it has to be. And
We'll get it out.
it's not an equal footed back and forth, of course. You don't have to take any of their recommendations. You don't have to address any of their language. The goal, of course, is to have something that is acceptable, such that when it goes back to City Council understands that this body has done the work to smooth out whatever can be ironed. But if it can't be, it can't be. You still have the ability to say, okay, well, we're not going to do anything that you've recommended here. We prefer our language. Or for that matter, we prefer what's there, and you can deal with it at a later date with a contract or an agreement or an MOU of some kind.
Right. But our goal is to come to an agreement
Yes.
and, not make this more complicated. than
Yes,
it
and we'll continue to work to do so. Unfortunately, it does mean we will have next week for that vote.
Thank you.
And we'll keep everybody in the loop.
Yeah,
You, the council, the mayor.
all right, thank you. Okay, there's been a handout for the issue of the 4-year or 2-year term for the council and others. If you can look at that, and I'll hand it back to the attorneys for explanation.
So this is two-sided and 2 pages, so 1, 2, 3, 4 in total. And this would be what needs to be, how things need to be reordered and when the new extended terms would begin. Of course, there are a number of different offices that are included in proposals back and forth between the two bodies, and a number of different options for when each of their terms would begin if extended. And so that's what we've put together for you here. We can go through each of the options and see, although remembering the discussion from the commission, I don't think the determinative factor of if any of the elected officials should get amended terms was being decided by how we would structure. I think it was conceptually, this body will determine if they want to recommend it, and then if so, we will figure out how to structure. So these 2 pages, or 4 pages, 2 papers, are the different options for how it might be structured if you determined to extend any of the offices.
Okay.
So, as you may recall, on May 28th, you had proposed the 4 and 2 4-year term for the mayor, 2-year term for the council. The council came back with a recommendation that created parity, 4-year terms for the mayor, council. I'm leaving out the town and city clerk. They get a 4-year term in most of these proposals anyhow, and the Board of Assessment Appeals as well. But under the council's proposal or recommendation to us, it would be a 4-year term starting in 2027. There would be an alignment election in 2029 for the class of 4, I'm calling it, on the Board of Education. They would get a 2-year term in 2029, and in 2031, there'd be an alignment election where every elected official, a municipal elected official, would get a 4-year term. That is the recommendation of the council. That's technically what's before you. And so our job is to come back, your job is to come back with a proposal, either to accept or reject their proposal, or to modify it in a manner that you may think is consistent or addresses the policy elements of it. And the other 2 proposals are to have a 4-year term for mayor in council in alternate cycles, so that you'd have a 4-year term for mayor in 2027, you'd have another 2-year term for the council in 2027, they go to a 4-year term in 2029. You leave the Board of Ed class of 4 to be on a ticket with the council going forward, and you would go forward in that way. So that would be it would accomplish 4-year terms for the council, but they would be in alternate election cycles. So it doesn't meet the objective that the council had of trying to create a vacant year for an election, a non-election year. So you don't have elections every year. You'd have elections 3 out of the 4 years in an election cycle. The second alternative to the recommendation is to have 4-year term for mayor in 2027, and you continue along, and I say mayor, city and town clerk, and Board of Assessment Appeals, and then you have the alignment election where there'd be a 4-year term for the council 4 years hence in 2031. The council and the Board of Ed, you'd end up in the cycle that the Board of Ed that the council was looking for, but there'd be a delay in the commencement of the council 4-year term. But eventually it would align. So those are the various alternatives. And so what's before you technically is their recommendation. If you accept their recommendation, it will be the alignment of the mayor and the council with the alignment election for the Board of Ed that ultimately align all the offices in 2031. If you reject that proposal without an alternative, then you're back to the proposal that you had in the original draft report, the 4-year term for mayor and 2-year term for council.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Members? Does everybody understand what he just walked us through?
I think we just, as much as we can simplify it as possible, that's going to be very, very confusing to the public when they're considering this, with all the options that are on the board.
Well, the public won't be considering these options.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, these are the different options.
There are different options.
these are
for
not the
you.
ballot questions.
Yeah, only one of those options will be in your final report.
I have to be honest, I've been struggling with this since day one. And I was, for the 4-year for the mayor, 2-year for the council. For all the reasons that we've talked about and all the meetings that we've had, specifically the whole check and balance type of situation. And I also feel that, we're in a really good position right now with a good mayor and a robust city council. And, right now you can say, well, this will be great. But, this is not, you have to plan for the future. This may or may not always be the case. Now, having said all that, I can also appreciate the concept of letting the constituents and the voters vote on, what they want. If they want a 4-year, if we present a 4-year and they want a 4-year, they'll vote. If they don't, they don't. So I have to say, even though we're this close, I'm personally still wrestling with the whole 2-year, 4-year concept.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I may, and for that reason, I feel relatively strongly that let's let the voters make that decision, because we're only, a group of however many we are here. I can't count that fast. I was an English major. But, I think that they're the ones who really should be the ones who are making that decision. I probably see it a little differently, in the sense that, just given how much time it takes to make change, right? That if you're only in office for 2 years, how much change can you actually implement for even the voters to make a decision as to whether or not you're competent, that you've done a good job. So I almost feel like you kind of need a little bit more time in order to prove that yourself. And so I would probably lean on, I'm leaning much more towards 4 and 4, but I'm one vote. And I'd much rather give that to our constituents to make that decision.
Thank you. Any other comments? I will say personally, I'm struggling with it too. Because I'm looking at the whole history of West Haven and all my experiences over the years, and possibly going forward as to, who will be elected, who will be mayor, who will be on the council. Certainly right now, even though they're sitting here, I will say it, we've got a very intelligent council, the most intelligent I've seen, and probably the most caring. But I know we're not always going to have them either. But I too am struggling and have not made a decision yet.
So Vice Chair Perry had sent out an email amongst the group here a while ago with a lot of pros and cons to 2-year versus 4-year. And there's a lot of good and a lot of bad on both sides. Ultimately, yes, we do need to leave it up to the voters, but we need to give them the best option possible. My feeling would be a staggered term for the council. I just don't know how that would look, and which council as to which years, or which districts as to what years would be.
Thank you, Tony. Attorney Mendick?
Is that kind of a question? That's an interesting concept. We've talked about it in a number of, I've done about 35 charters, and we've talked about creating a stagger. The natural break would be between at-large and districts, where you'd have the at-large run in one cycle and the districts in another cycle. Because it would be impossible it would be hard to differentiate between the districts, to have some districts run in one cycle and the other cycle. But we've never actually done it. We've never done the divide that way. It's not to say it can't be done, but it's, how many at-large do you have? 3? Yeah, so you'd have 9 members run in one cycle and 3 run in the other. Since the at-large are running citywide, they'd probably be, the logic would be they'd be on the line with the mayor.
Member Mancini, is that what you were talking about as far as staggered
Yeah,
terms?
that's what I thought.
So the council would be split up with staggered terms?
Yeah. The other
didn't
concept that
understand
I
it
was
when you
talking
first said
about,
it,
which
that's
is I think option 2 or 3, would be to have both the council and the mayor have 4-year terms, but they'd be on alternate cycles. That's not a stagger of the council, it's just an alternate cycle methodology. You're talking about kind of a permutation of that, because you'd have part of the council on an alternate cycle and another part of the council on a mayoral cycle. So you'd have a group that runs with the mayor and a group that runs in the neighborhoods, is what it comes down to. Which is, it's an interesting concept. I've just never broken it up that way, but we've talked about it over the years, so it's not to say it can't be done.
Attorney Mednick, can you put something together for us to at least take a look at that?
I can do that.
I mean, I assume that's what Tony would like to see. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
Member Garlock?
Are you familiar with the structure of the city of Milford? Attorney Mednick?
I know they have a board of aldermen. I've never done a charter there, so I haven't delved into their charter.
Could you look at it or look it up and get
Yeah, I
information
can
on
certainly
how
do
their
that.
structure
Yeah,
is,
I know, I can definitely do that. I think they have, I don't know if they have at large, but I'll take a look. I think that they have like a ward system, a district system. I lived in Milford most of my young life during the summers, but I was busy building sandcastles and chasing girls when I was a teenager at the beaches in Woodmont, so I never studied the government of Milford, but I will take a look at that as part of this. Remember, we only have the one more meeting, so what I will try to do, Mr. Chair, is I will do this and get it out to everybody so we can all look at it. We can't deliberate by email, but if people have questions,
Sure.
write to me, they can write to me and ask me questions so we can refine concepts.
Well,
And I'll
again,
let you know.
I think since Tony brought it up, it's something to look at.
And I will look at Milford. Is there anything specific about Milford that you think I should be looking for, or just what Milford does?
I
Okay.
just did a quick glance at it.
I have Milford open in front of me if you want me to read into the record.
Could you please?
Sure. Milford is elected to 2-year terms. Milford has 15 alders split over 5 districts, 3 in each.
Elected in the same cycle?
That I can't tell.
But they have, no two can be of the same, no more than two can be of the same political party.
Yeah, they have like a mini.
Your mic, Bridget?
In that makeup, if there's 3 from each district, no more than 2 could be from any, from the same political party.
It's a mini
And
at-large system.
Are you done? So, I'm gonna express how I feel. I've been thinking about this and debating it much longer than I even like to. I take this stuff extremely serious. It's just who I am. So, I'm not in favor of a 4-year term for the city council, and probably irregardless of how it is presented, I will be voting no. Why do I feel that way? I feel that way because in my mind, when I do the math, I believe that it's going to end up that one political party is going to be in power and maintain power, and that the other parties in the city will have a very difficult time having representation. I don't need my political party to tell me what political party I'm aligned with. I'm more than aware. I am just extremely in favor of all, and I believe in bipartisanship. And I believe that the only way to give all the ability to speak is to hold what we can hold accountable and hold people accountable. I believe the mayor should have a 4-year term. I believe the city clerk should have a 4-year term, because those are full-time jobs where their job is to run the city. I have sat on the seat of a council person. I did it for a 2-year stretch. And the argument of, well, if they don't want to run for 4 years, then I don't want them then they don't have to run. I don't want them as a council person anyways. Well, I think the argument is if they don't want to run for 2 years, then they don't have to run for the 2 years. But I think that every council person for generations have learned the job and what they needed to do in the 2-year time frame. And if they want to run again, then they run again. And sometimes you'll see that there is turnover, and the turnover is for a great many reasons. But none of their reasons supersede the fact that I believe the city council is elected for the people. It is what the people need. And if they need change in the city, then they need to be able to elect the council that's there, or the people that are there, or elect for people, the new people. So I just wanted to give my full disclosure. I am not for it. I won't vote for any other I'm just not. I believe we are taking away people's right to be able to vote and I just believe you're taking away some of my freedoms that I'm allowed, and I want to have some still control of that. If that makes sense for me personally.
Thank you. Other comments,
Mr.
questions?
Chair, for Commissioner Garlock, I've done some more research. All 15 of the seated alders in Milford are elected at the same time.
Can you tell us the party difference? Like how many are?
Sure. There are, in Milford, 15 seated alders, 8 Democrats, 7 Republicans. No independents or unaffiliated.
And currently, right now in our city, we have 12 of one party and 1 of another party. And that, to me, has always been a long-standing struggle in this city to have representation for the masses. And a couple of years ago, it was 3 and 9. I think I did the math. No, 3 and 10. And even then, it's just, and I just believe going this route, we are going to create a control structure that I don't align with.
Thank you.
If I may make a
Yes,
comment.
Vice Chair
Number
Perry.
one, I appreciate that we all have the ability to share our opinions, and I absolutely appreciate what you're saying. A couple of things, and maybe this is very unpopular, but I guess I don't get caught up in the ideology, right? I think one of the things that we have, an issue we have in this country, that we're so polarized, that we're worried about these parties versus what we need to accomplish as a society. So I think that, even if we stop thinking about we have 5 of these and 2 of those and 9 of these and 8 of these, it doesn't matter. I think what the most important thing is whoever is focused on the issues that our community and our constituents are asking us to focus on. So that's one thing. The other thing, I'm just curious in terms of what percentage of the towns here have a 4-year versus a 2-year for either their councilmen or their council or their aldermen?
I have a chart on that, not with me, though. I think that's still predominantly 2-year terms for councils in most communities, many communities. The trend is moving it in the 4-year direction. New Haven moved in the 4-year direction. Hamden kept it in 2 years. Waterbury has a 2-year. Bridgeport, Stanford's 2 years. Bridgeport I have to think about. Norwalk is 2 years for their council, 4 years for the mayor. Hartford is 4 and 4 for their 4-year council. But I have a chart that I can get out to you guys to show you that. But they're all slightly different. Some of them are aligned, some of them are not aligned. New Haven.
Is New Haven aligned?
New Haven's aligned, so the mayor runs with the Board of Alders at all times. Hamden is not. Hamden, obviously, with the 2-year, 4-year, they're aligned in every 2 years, but there's, in the off election, the council is the counterweight to the mayor. We'll be seeing how that works next year. It'll be the first time that it's been operational. But that can work both ways, because I've told people recently that it was originally designed to give the legislative body authority, but if the mayor has a problem with the legislative body, the mayor can certainly run a slate and support a slate against that council slate. It's not quite the hegemony or autocratic approach that mayors or presidents or governors can have, because with a district system, it gives independent candidates the ability to break the back of the political bosses and to win in a district on a district issue or a ward issue. But we'll see how that works in Hamden, but they have a split.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Member Garlock? I'll get to
I
you
also,
next.
like Vice Chair Perry, agree that, everyone in the world, or in our nation, is pretty much stuck on the political parties. We're all created equal, and I think we need to recognize more of what the person actually does. I'm for a 2-year term because I believe that our council member for our districts need to remain engaged with their constituents. I've been a resident and homeowner for 11 years, and the first few years we did not know who our council person was. He didn't engage with us unless I did something. And I think our council members now do a good job of remaining engaged with us. But if they don't continue to show up for constituents, then, how can they speak for us and do what we need done for our town?
Thank you. Member Gilbert?
Yeah, I just feel funny about worrying about the political makeup of the city council as far as the commission is concerned. I think just make up our mind on what we think is best for a 2 or 4 year term, but to think that we have to worry about they have equal representation here, they have equal representation there, that's never gonna work. It's very hard to get everything balanced so everything's perfect for everybody. So I don't think we should show that political aspect in there of what party gets the control, because that's gonna happen throughout history. It's always been that way.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, as I sent out, we'd like to schedule a meeting for next Thursday, July 16th at 6 o'clock, hopefully in the council chambers, which should be our final meeting where we will vote on hopefully the VIA language resolution and the issue of 2 or 4 year term for council and alignment of positions. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Perry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.